Look. Sorry. Okay, let's see. So I wanted to start. That's not what I want to do. I wanted to start with I just spoke to Eileen Cosman because she was apologizing that she can't get out of the class because her daughter had this crazy car accident today. She said she's okay, but the hospital is like so full that she's like not even in a room yet. She needs to get like a CAT scan to make sure everything's
Oh
okay.
my God, which daughter?
So it's Aviva Marielle Bas Rachel.
Oh, Aviva?
She was in the middle of like buckling her kids into their car seats, and a car rammed into like the door where she was, like where it was open. So like the car door like kind of hit her head. But
Gosh.
yeah, so she's okay, but like she has to get checked out. So
Okay.
she's busy taking care of the grandkids meanwhile.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. I always don't know this. Okay. Anyway, so that's yeah. So we're just starting with that. Of course, Shalema, Pavi Mariel Bas Rachel. Okay. So question for the class is there any relationship or experience that you've had or you have that's like two layers or two parts? Like for like I'll just give like the idea of being like having a when they sometimes they ask you when you're going on a trip, is it business or pleasure? And like sometimes it's both because you sometimes you're able to combine business and pleasure. Do you have any relationship or any type of experience that like on one hand was like something that you have to do or deal with or responsibilities, on the other hand, something deeper than that? And if so, you can share. Like I'll give you an example so you'll understand what I'm saying is that let's say when I took care of my parents here, um, so I wasn't like a very like I don't say I wasn't like very close with my parents like in a certain way, but like taking care, I had all these responsibilities and duties, and of course I wanted the best for them. And but living in my house and me having so much to do with them, it kind of like created a much deeper relationship, let's say, that wasn't there otherwise. So in the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And I have to do this and I have to do that and blah, blah, blah. And there's all these like uh, things I had to deal with. On the other hand, like now that I look back, it's like, wow, I really became really connected, close, and it like changed me a lot. And I, even though it was crazy then, I would say, oh my God, I would never do this. Um, I look back and say, oh, I'm so happy I had that opportunity. So if anyone else has any type of experience or relationship that they could, you
I
know,
mean, just like going back to help my mom, the past month, even though she was in my house, but I was with her every day and taking care and making sure she sort of got out of a bad situation and into a really good one. And even though it was sort of stressful and taxing, it just made me feel so much closer.
mm-hmm,
It made me feel better.
mm-hmm. Okay. Great. Hi, Yvette. No problem. Hi, Shelly. I see that Shelly made it on, and Dina.
I'm here. I'm
Awesome.
here.
Okay.
I'm running late, so I'm going to be
No
eating dinner
worries. Take care of yourself.
while
Okay.
we're doing
No
class.
problem. Take care of yourself. Okay.
Is that what you meant, sorry, or something else? I
Well,
wasn't
yeah. So
sure.
I'm saying that's kind of an example. Okay. So like on one hand, there's things you need to do. Let's say you have a newborn baby. You have to change your diaper. You have to feed them every 2 hours. You have to. On the other hand, it's like this such a pleasure and a joy to be able to hold a newborn baby in your arms. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes there's
Yes.
things that we do that on one hand are taxing in a way, on the other hand, um, create this connection or joy or something in our life that we enjoy, as opposed to just being a taxing thing, or as opposed to just having like a fleeting relationship with someone where it's all, I want to say pleasure, but um, there's no like responsibility to the relationship. You know what I'm saying? So this is like a when you have two parts, both parts of relationship. Okay. So when Hashem gave the Torah, there were also two parts to the story. There's Hashem giving the rules, okay? And then there was the forging a relationship with Hashem. Hello. Okay. So last week, the Torah portion, we read the Ten Commandments. Whoever was in Shul heard them. And And this week, we'll discuss in depth the connection with that with the past parsha and with our parsha. And no, it's nobody's. You can have some. And we'll uncover two parts of our relationship with Hashem, two parts of our connection with Hashem. Okay. So if anybody knows, as we said, last week's parsha was the whole story of the Ten Commandments, which is like the biggie, the big defining moment in history where Jews became a nation, where God came down into the world. So there's a lot of biggies and amazing things. And first, and it was with thunder and lightning, literally. And that's what kind of parsha it was. And this week's parsha is kind of like the other extreme. It's just like a whole bunch of boring laws. No, literally, it's like just like one lot of law. If you have a servant, if you have this, if you have that, if your ox plows into your neighbor's something, what do you do?
He's running already.
And it kind of gets a little bit like, oh wow, this is a long, drawn out parsha, and it's like totally like opposite kind of effect as last week's parsha.
Are we supposed to retain the energy from last week to actually stay up in this discussion? That's the idea? Like 2 weeks worth of energy?
Maybe, but no, that's not what we're going to learn today. Okay, but what else is interesting about it is that the story of Hashem giving the Torah isn't only in a concise part of last week's parsha, but it's spread out over different chapters, including parts of this week's parsha. So even though there's lots of laws in this week's parsha, it does also mention parts of when Hashem is giving the Torah. We'll discuss that in depth today. Okay, and what's weird about it is it seems like it's kind of out of order, or kind of disrupted. It's not like a straight storyline, but it's kind of like different parts at different moments. Okay, so we're gonna have a lot of text reading today because we want to see what was in last week's parsha and what was in this week's parsha. Okay, and you'll see kind of how it's kind of disconnected in certain places. Okay, so text 1a. Oh, those are little kugels. So some is zucchini and some is broccoli.
Okay, I'll do one name.
Okay.
In the 3rd month of the children of Israel's departure from Egypt, on this day they arrived in the desert of Sinai. They journeyed from Rephidim, and they arrived in the desert of Sinai, and they encamped in the desert, and Israel encamped there opposite the mountain. Moses ascended to God, and God called to him from the mountain, saying, "So shall you say to the house of Jacob, and tell the sons of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore you on eagle's wings, and I brought you to me. And now, if you obey me and keep my covenant, you shall be to me a treasure out of all peoples, for mine is the entire earth. And you shall be to me a kingdom of princes and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel." Moses came and summoned the elders of Israel and placed before them all these words that God had commanded him. And all the people replied in unison and said, "All that God has spoken, we shall do." And Moses took the words of the people back to God. And God said to Moses, "Behold, I am coming to you in the thickness of the cloud, in order that the people hear when I speak to you, and they will also believe in you forever." And Moses relayed the words of the people to God. And God said to Moses, "Go to the people and prepare them today and tomorrow, and they shall wash their garments. And they shall be prepared for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day, God will descend before the eyes of all the people upon Mount Sinai. And you shall set boundaries for the people around, saying, 'Beware of ascending the mountain or touching its edge. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely be put to death. No hand shall touch it, for he shall be stoned or cast down. Whether man or beast, he shall not live. When the ram's horn sounds a long, drawn-out blast, they may ascend the mountain.' So Moses descended from the mountain to the people, and he prepared the people, and they washed their garments. He said to the people, 'Be ready for 3 days. Do not go near a woman.' It came to pass on the 3rd day, when it was morning, that there were thunderclaps and lightning flashes, and a thick cloud was upon the mountain, and a very powerful blast of a shofar, and the entire nation that was in the camp shuddered. God descended upon Mount Sinai to the peak of the mountain, and God summoned Moses to the peak of the mountain, and Moses ascended."
Okay, so that was kind of like all a prep, leading up to giving of the Torah to Moshe going up in the mountain, and then in 1b, we're gonna see how the Ten Commandments are given. And you're gonna notice 1b is gonna skip some verses because it's not gonna redo all the Ten Commandments again, but it also wants you to see the right before the Ten Commandments and right after the Ten Commandments. So 1b. Here, you want to do it? Hi, Sylvia.
No, I was late too. I was late too. That's
You can go, Carrie.
Okay, the Ten Commandments. God spoke all these words to respond.
67.
I am God, your God, who took you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And all the people saw the voices and the torches, the sound of the shofar and the smoking mountain, and the people saw and trembled, so they stood from afar. The people,
67. 67.
6-7.
the people remained far off, but Moses drew near to the opaque darkness where God was. God said to Moses, "So shall you say to the children of Israel, you have seen that from the heavens I have spoken with you. You shall not make images of anything that is with me. Gods of silver or gods of gold you shall not make for yourselves. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and you shall slaughter beside it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your cattle. Wherever I allow my name to be mentioned, I will come to you and bless you."
Okay, so very interesting. So after the Ten Commandments are given, there's a few more things that Hashem commands Moshe. He again reiterates about not worshiping idols or making idols, and about bringing offerings and things like that. So that is all the chapter 19 and 20. Now the Parsha of Mishpatim, our Parsha, begins with chapter 21, and as I said before, it's a lot of laws, person-to-person laws about slaves, there's laws about responsibilities and assets and things like that. And then all of a sudden, we continue to the part of Moshe being at Mount Sinai again, to observe the mitzvahs and go up to the mountain. So it's similar to what we spoke about before, and it's a little bit more of a detail. So the question is, why do we have this here? And if you guys want to see this, I'm gonna turn this around.
What's the big thing here? What's the item that?
Why they're more like it's gonna start talking again about Mount Sinai, and this after it gives a whole bunch of laws, and it's going to do it a little more detailed. So it's gonna say some things I didn't mention before. So 1 second. Okay, so first, if you guys want to see this, it might be helpful to you. So there's Sinai narrative 1. Which the events leading up to Mount Torah, the divine revelation of Sinai, God cautions against the use of idols, ... Okay, then there's this week's Parsha Mishpatim, for the laws regarding the damages and Jewish calendar cycle, promises of divine blessing and protection, blah, blah, blah. And then it goes back to talking about Sinai, what happened at Sinai, okay? So what is going on here? We're going to talk about this in a minute. So let's first, before we do that, we're going to read text number 2, which is what we're going to read about in this week's Parsha that seemingly have to do with when Hashem gave the Torah, or the time of Hashem gave the Torah. So text number 2. Someone on here want to read it? On Zoom?
I'll read it.
I'll read. Oh, does somebody say?
Such a read.
Okay.
Okay. And to Moses, God said, "Come up to God, you and Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and prostrate yourselves from afar. And Moses alone shall approach God, but they shall not approach, and the people shall not ascend with him." So Moses came and told the people all the words of God and all the ordinances. And all the people answered in unison and said, "All the words that God had spoken, we will do." And Moses wrote all the words of God, and he arose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain and 12 monuments for the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent the youths of the children of Israel, and they offered up burnt offerings, and they slaughtered peace offerings to God, bulls.
It continues.
And Moses took half the blood and put it into the basins, and half the blood he cast onto the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read it within the hearing of the people. And they said, all that God spoke, we will do, and we will hear. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and he said, behold, the blood of the covenant that Hashem has formed with you concerning these words. And Moses and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and 70 of the elders of Israel ascended. And after they perceived the God of Israel, and beneath his feet was like the forming of a sapphire brick, and like the appearance of the heavens for clarity. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel, he did not lay his hand, and they perceived Hashem, and they ate and drank.
And it continues.
And God said to Moses, come up to me to the mountain and remain there, and I will give you the stone tablets, the law and the commandments, which I have written to instruct them. So Moses and Joshua, his servant, arose, and Moses ascended to the mount of God. And to the elders he said, wait for us here until we return to you. And here Aaron and Hur are with you. Whoever has a case, let him go to them. And Moses went up to the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. And Moses came within the cloud, and he went up to the mountain. And Moses was upon the mountain 40 days and 40 nights.
Okay, so as we know, right? Moshe went up on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So this is talking about when Hashem gave the Torah. And then after this parsha, Mishpatim, then we go into a whole discussion of parshas that talk about how they built the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the desert. And then only after that, those two parshas, do we talk about how Moshe coming down from the mountain and the Jewish people serving the golden calf. So what is going on here? Things seem really out of place. Why are we having the story here repeated? Why is it out of order? Is it two different stories? What is going on? So to help us understand, we're going to look into Rashi and see what we could take from there. Okay. I'm just telling us what I just said. Okay. So this week's parsha, as I said before, it's kind of boring. It just has a whole bunch of like cold laws, interpersonal relationships, some also laws between us and God, like Shabbos, Yom Tov, kosher. There's no real storyline in this week's parsha, except a little what we just spoke about just now. And especially, as I said before, last week's parsha was a biggie. It was a little very dramatic. And here, this week's parsha is kind of boring.
Boring, just
not boring. Okay.
How about not as exciting?
Not as exciting. Okay. Not for like ADD minds to like pay attention. For people who are like scientific minds that could sit and read all the differences in these papers. Yeah. Okay, no problem. Okay.
You
So
you don't know what that is, just the facts. So it's a,
Right.
it's an old television story.
So we're going to text 3a is actually a repeat just of one of the lines that we just previously read from this week's parsha. And from that, we're going to understand, we're going to take what's going on here. Okay, so the main question is, why does the Torah repeat the story of Matan Torah twice, the giving of the Torah twice? Why is it so out of order? Okay, we said that. Okay, 3a. So this is what we're going to kind of repeat what we read just in the last text. So 3a. Catherine, you want to read it?
Sure. And to Moses, God said, come up to God, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and prostrate yourselves from afar.
Okay. So we just read this in the second rendition of Moshe going up to Mount Sinai to get the Torah. Not the second time, but the second.
And this is this week, or
This week's parsha, yeah, the Mishpatim.
So it's not that boring.
No, so this part of it, but the whole first part, the whole first 5 or 6 aliyahs are all laws and stuff. Okay. Sorry, I just remember, like, in school, or a teacher, you can like, oh wow, this happened this week. Oh, the Jews left Egypt. Oh, there was blood, there was frogs, and all of a sudden, okay, if your ox, gores your neighbors something, then this happens. If You know, if you have a slave, you can let it free after this many years, you know.
But this
So
is like this is the last parsha. So I mean, not parsha, the last aliyah. What we're reading
I think it's
about.
the end. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the end.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay. For the last one, second last, yeah,
Second
around
to
there.
last, okay.
I don't know. I didn't look it up exactly, but it could be the
Okay,
last.
sure.
I don't know exactly.
Okay.
But I know it's towards the end.
Okay.
Okay. So now Rashi is going to comment on what we just on
What's
where it
going-
says come up and
Got the Torah stuff?
whatever. Yeah. You and all the people and whatever. Okay. So let's read text. We read 3a, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So 3b. Want to read it, Sylvia?
Sure. To Moses, God said, "Come up." This section was said before the Ten Commandments. Moses was given the instruction, "Come up," on the 4th day of the month of Sivan.
Okay, so I want you to look, what's in parentheses, quotations is the quote from the Torah. And Moses said, to Moses, God said, and why it says like that, come up. And then Rashi's explaining, oh, this, just to make it clear, this is not another story, but this is part of what happened before.
Oh, this is a repeat.
It's like a repeat.
Okay.
Okay. Now, so we're talking about before the giving of the Torah. What day was it? It was the 4th of Sivan. The Torah was given on Sivan. Rashi seems to be clarifying that this is a few days before the Torah was given. It's not another narrative. It's more of a repeat with more details. So the question is why? Why is it all of a sudden popping up over here in this week's Parsha? Why isn't it all back over there? Or why is the need to say it over here? So is Rashi telling us something that a lot of people know? Anyone who's learned a little bit of Torah knows that there's it says there's no chronological order in the Torah. So is Rashi trying to tell us that? Which many other commentaries, talk about all the time, that it's a very famous thing. There's no chronological order in the Torah. Sometimes things pop up here or pop up there. And,
Why can't it just be you just can't take everything in all at once? I mean, there's so much data. I mean, you can only look at data. Like when I look at data, right? Everybody looks at information, whatever thing. You can't look at everything. You got to look at just the main, and then you're like, okay, I have more. So you got to look at.
Right, great. Okay, so maybe that's it. Maybe that's it.
Overload your brain.
Overload.
Brain overload.
Okay, so just for example, text number 4 is just some commentary explaining this idea that there's no chronological order. Yvette, want to read it?
Oh,
you don't have a book open even?
I'm just listening.
Okay. Shelly, I'm holding it for yeah.
Okay.
Shelly, okay.
Rav Menashia bar Tachlifa said in the name of Rav, there is no chronological order of earlier and later in the Torah.
Okay, but on the other hand, Rashi said many times only picks like the most simple, basic explanation. Like doesn't try to look for like a deeper explanation usually. I mean, sometimes else that comes up, but he usually tries to find the most simplest answer. So is Rashi really telling us that, is that why Rashi bringing this down, that he wants to tell us that there's no chronological order in the Torah, or just something else that he wants to tell us? And not just that, the Ramban, Nachmanides, agrees with this idea that don't just assume that it's out of order. We should usually assume it's in order unless something very specific is in play.
Wants to be emphasized.
Right. So let's read text number 5. I guess back to
Me?
yeah.
Rabbi Abraham ibn Ezra invokes the principle there is no chronological order of earlier and later in the Torah, very often at will. In my opinion, the entire Torah follows chronological order, aside from when the Torah makes the departure explicit, and any such departure must have a good reason.
Okay, so now we're going to see what the Rebbe says about Rashi. Okay, and that is text number 6. Carrie.
Oh, the Rebbe is going to comment on Rashi.
Yeah, well, this whole series has been the Rebbe commenting on Rashi.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Sorry, really.
That's okay.
Rashi cites the rule, there is no chronological order of earlier and later in the Torah a number of times. However, it is clear that this principle can only be invoked when there is no alternative explanation, and there must also be a reason for this departure. In our case, we need to explain the section beginning, and to Moses, God said, "Come up," was actually said on the 4th of Sivan before the 10 Commandments. Why then does it appear only at the end of Parshat Mishpatim out of its place?
Okay, so the Rebbe is asking, so what's going on here? Why is it mentioned here after all these other laws? And if we aren't trying to prove that it's out of order, okay? So a few questions over here. So if this was the case that Rashi's saying, oh, we're trying to prove it's out of order, why would the word come up, alei in Hebrew, be included in the words that like quote the Rashi is quoting? And also Rashi is usually very precise in what he says. And why does he say this was said before the Ten Commandments was given? Why doesn't he say it was given before the giving of the Torah? Why does he use the word Ten Commandments and not the giving of the Torah? Okay, so these are the questions, and we're going to get to the answer. Okay, so so what's going on here is, I know Yvette said maybe we just can't take too much information in at once. We got to do it slowly, but it's something a little bit different than that. More, it's like there's the same story, two different narratives. So let's see, narratives. So you hear something on the news, and then you turn on CNN, and then you turn on Fox News, and you get two totally different stories.
Oh, totally different.
Okay, so not quite like that. I was just joking over here.
Yeah.
But we're looking at two perspectives of the same story. So it's two parallel two different stories on parallel tracks. So storyline one is Hashem is giving us all the laws. He's giving us the guide, the manual, how to be the Jewish people. You're the Jewish people, and we can also, since we always compare the Torah giving to the marriage, so we can compare it to the ketubah. Ketubah has all these laws. You have to provide blah 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 blah. Okay. So there's a manual, a guide, how to be Jewish or how to live a Jewish lifestyle. Okay. Then storyline number two is the actual forging of relationship with us. By giving us a Torah, he chose us. He cemented us as his chosen nation, and now we create the relationship. So it's like the relationship side of the wedding, of the marriage. Okay. So text number 7. Okay. Back to Batya, I guess.
Oh, did Sylvia read?
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Sylvia.
Hi.
The giving of the Torah achieved two objectives. First, Hashem gave the Jewish people the commandments and laws of the Torah. Second, through receiving the Torah, the Jewish people became Hashem's servants, as the verse states, you will serve God, Hashem, on this mountain.
Okay, so two storylines. Okay, so that's why we have this repetition. So we are the main thing, so in last week's Parsha and in this week's Parsha, I thought we have these two is repeating itself. Text 1 in last week's Parsha, it's preparation to receive the Torah, aka the laws, the mitzvahs, do this, don't do that. Just prepare us for the giving of the Torah. Then we read all these laws and stuff. Okay, that's done. And in this week's Parsha, at the end, it's the same event, but different storyline, because the focus now is on the relationship part. How do we connect to Hashem? Hashem made a covenant with us, it says, and he did all the ceremony and stuff like that, and we will do and we will listen. In Hebrew, na'aseh v'nishma, very famous words. We said we will do before we said we will hear what it is, because we are ready to do whatever Hashem wants us to do. And it's not just about the laws, but creating that intimacy. So the relationship is not just about the chuppah, the ketubah, but it's also about the intimacy and the relationship that you have. And in our case with Hashem, creating that connection with Hashem. Text number 8. I'm just going to spin me up a whole bunch of things over here. I have to explain it, what I just said. 8. Shelley, I'm going to give this one to you because it's a longish.
Okay. I hope my voice will hold out.
If it's too much, let me know.
No, it'll be fine.
I have big, I believe in you.
The account in the Torah portion of Yitro focuses primarily on the giving of the Torah and its commandments, the 10 commandments. Therefore, the account of the preparations for the giving of the Torah focuses on the commandments given to prepare the Jews for this event, abstinence and keeping a distance from the mountain. By contrast, the account in the Torah portion of Mishpatim focuses on the second aspect of the giving of the Torah, the covenant between God and the Jewish people, through which the Jews became God's servant. The covenant was forged through the series of actions described in this account. The people's accepting the Torah by saying, "We will do and we will hear," writing the book of the covenant, and the construction of an altar, sacrifices, and sprinkling blood.
So the main thing Rashi is doing here, he's not pointing out the chronological out of orderness of the reading, but he's trying to point out that there's two aspects of the event. There's the part with the laws, and then the deeper part, which is forging the relationship. Now, some of us have a much easier time just, okay, you have to do ABC, easy for me to do ABC, but maybe the connection part, relationship part is more difficult. And for some of us, the relationship part and the connection part, they feel close to Hashem, they feel connected, but for them to do ABC, it's harder for them to do. So the real truth is we got to keep a balance. We got to try to do a little bit of both, right, to get it right. But the relationship part, the connection part is what's really, doing the things keep us connected and keep us. So I'm not discounting that at all. But I just want to share a story about bringing out this idea of someone with a very heartfelt connection with Hashem. And that is, there was a very famous, not famous, but Rabbi Fishel Schachter. And he says a story about a woman who survived the Holocaust. She was the only survivor of her family. She came to America, she got married, and for 12 years, she couldn't have any children. And she, went to all these different doctors, experts, and everything. And she's sitting in the doctor's office one day after 12 years, and the doctor says, "Listen to me, ma'am, for your own benefit, just give up. Like, don't make yourself crazy to try to have children. You try, don't make yourself suffer. Just live your life and enjoy your life." And he says, "You know what? And when hair will grow on the palm of my hand, that's when you'll have children." And she left there so upset and so despondent and so, what did she do? And she got on the bus to ride home. But instead of going home, she said, "You know what? Why should I go home? What's the purpose? What's life for? If I can't have the children, the doctor's telling me I have no hope, and I should just give up hope, forget it. And I'm just going to stay on this bus." Finally, but eventually the bus ride ends, and the driver says, "Hey, lady, time to get off." And she says, "What do I need to get off for? I have no reason to live." And he said, "Of course you have a reason to live, but sitting on the bus isn't going to help you." And she remembers, during this, I guess, ride, she remembers how she was a young girl in Poland, and her family, they hid in the cellar with there was a trap door in their house, I guess, and it was covered with some furniture and stuff. And she was on the lookout because she was small and she was able to hide, and she was on the lookout that when Nazis came to search the home to, I guess, she would just cover it up so they wouldn't see the trap door and everything. And then I guess when they would leave, she would go back, hide underneath with them or whatever it was. And it happened a few times that Nazis came looking for the family. They couldn't find anyone and they left. And then this one time they came looking and they felt a soft spot in the floor, and they uncovered the trapdoor, and everybody in the cellar was taken away. And she, because she was in her other hiding spot, she watched the whole thing, and she's the one that survived. And she's like, "Why did I survive for? If not to rebuild my family again." But now she has no choice. She has to get off the bus. She has no, what's she gonna do? And she looks up at the sky and says, "Master of the universe, you saved my life so many times. You brought me here. You gave me life. Only you can give me children too." And a year later, she was blessed with a child. And this Rabbi Schachter says, "This lady told me the story personally. I heard it straight from her. She was my mother."
Oh.
So,
well, maybe she was in South Central, you get really scared at the end of the bus line. You're like, "Man, I got to protect myself."
actually, she's on Madison Avenue,
Right.
New York.
Oh, that's
Okay.
Fancy Schmancy.
Okay.
Super.
So anyway,
Madison.
okay. So,
and who's the rabbi? Who's the son?
his name is Fishel Schachter.
Fishel Schachter.
Okay. So it's not just a chronological, orderly story of giving of the Torah, but it's more telling us that there's this monumental world-changing event. First the laws, and then the idea of having a covenant with Hashem. Okay, so when Rashi says the word come up, ale, it's not just a physical go up to the mountain, but raise yourself up to a higher level, to connect with Hashem, to have a relationship with Hashem. So he's telling Moshe and the elders, come up.
Oh, like Aliyah.
Yeah.
Oh, Aliyah. Okay.
It's come up and step up from where you are now and become closer to me, come closer to Hashem. And that's why it specifically in the Rashi says after the 10 commandments were given, because we did the giving of the laws part, and now it's the relationship part. So instead of saying, oh, giving of the Torah, because that's more like includes everything, the 10 commandments is more like the laws, the 10 commandments. And now the idea of creating this covenant and creating a relationship, it's like it's something that is now beyond the law. So yes, you have to follow the laws to do that, but it's more than just being a cold law follower. It's bringing the warmth into it.
It has to be that order, because you can't have
Yes,
emotion before law.
yes,
You have to have
yes.
the law, and then you have the
Yeah, definitely.
reversed.
Oh, no, totally. Right, but saying it's not mixed all together. It's
Oh,
kind of separate. Okay.
got it.
Even though they happen at the same, well, kind of happen.
Oh, right.
Okay. Even the story happened at the same time. Okay. So what is relevant to us today? Okay. So if we look at the story, again of Mount Sinai, and the laws were given once, like the chuppah or the ketubah is written once, right? But then the whole relationship part, but that's short-lived. That's once, and then that's there. Then you put it away in the closet, and very nice. I mean, no.
Well, not in my closet.
Well, whatever it is. Okay. Well, better be somewhere. If your ketubah's not somewhere, then you might have a problem. But you just don't know where it is. That's all. As long as you know where it is. Okay. But then the main thing is that you're building the relationship. You're building that connection. But what happens after 40 days? They already make a mistake, right? They already do a boo-boo. So it's a lifelong project. Yes, you make mistakes, but you always got to correct it. And so to make that sustainable, to make that relationship sustainable, you always have to work on something. You always have to work towards that, making a home for Hashem. How do we make a home for Hashem? Okay, today, obviously, we have a home and we do different things, but the original was to create the Mishkan, to create the tabernacle, where they're literally creating a house of God where they can serve God. And they put all their love and connection of God into building the Mishkan. And that's why the parshas right after Mishpatim are creating the Mishkan, because they're creating that home, a physical space for God. Yes.
That's what I was going to ask. When was the first part of this? When was the first parsha of this story? Part one of this. When was that?
Okay, so
how many weeks ago.
No, last week.
Oh, it was last week.
Yeah.
So just on one.
Last
two.
week.
Okay,
This week we're explaining the covenant part, the connection, the intimacy.
So it's not.
And then next week, well, it's the same story. We're just explaining different parts of the story. First we turned on CNN, now we turn on Fox News.
No, who asked that question?
Because that's how Judaism is.
Oh,
We like to
'Cause it's
ask
like it
questions on
makes sense to
questions.
me. How
Until you start opening up and they say, hey, what's going on over here? Anyway, so then the next part is after they submit the golden calf, they said, oh, we need to do something. We need to put our connection, our creativity, our covenant into something. Let's build this. We have to build this. Hashem said, build a home for me. And that's what they did. And in general, today, we build a home for Hashem in the whole world. But every time we do a mitzvah, every time we do something, it reveals the godliness in that part of the world. And you're slowly getting the world ready for Mashiach. So let us read text number 9, the Midrash. I have no clue who we're up to. I guess Catherine, did you read a second time?
Sure. Rabbi Yahushua said, God told the Jewish people while they were still in Egypt that the redemption was conditioned on their construction of a sanctuary for him, in which he could rest his presence in the midst of the people. This is the meaning of the verse, they will know that I, the Lord, am their God, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, in order that I may dwell in their midst. When the tabernacle was erected, the divine presence descended and rested in their midst. Rav said, when the tabernacle was built, something unprecedented in the history of the world occurred. From the time of creation until that day, God's presence hadn't rested in the lower realms of the world. This began only after the tabernacle was built.
Okay. So that's why the portions of Truma Tetzaveh follow this whole storyline. So in story one, where Hashem's coming down and laying out the guidelines, the plan, the laws, it's the main protagonist here is Hashem. He makes the rules. So it's Hashem coming down to below. The next part where it's making a covenant and us rising up and creating a relationship with him, the main protagonist is us. So it's an arousal from below, the Jewish people, to Hashem, which is a much more everlasting connection with him. And so Hashem gives us the laws, the arousal from above, but he wants us to invest in it to create our space for him here in this world. So it's not just about checking off boxes. You know, I davened today, I said the bracha today, I gave tzedakah today, I did this today. It's also about feeling and connection and creating an emotion about it, and investing in it. And that is the very special thing we learn about why there's this repetition in this week's parsha about.
Did you record this?
I recorded it, but thank you, Snap. Now I'll stop recording. Oh, and I also wanted to, so before the class is over, I said tonight is Rebbe Simchai Mushka's the 37th year, I think, since 1988. I'm going to calculate, I think 37 years since her passing. Actually, remember, I was young. I was maybe in 9th grade, 8th grade, something like that. 9th grade, I think, when it happened. So she was born in 1901. She was the middle daughter of the previous Chabad Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak. She was very involved. He only had three daughters, had no sons. So she was involved in helping him in different things, in his missions and bringing Judaism to the USSR, which was banned Judaism at that time.
Russia?
Yeah. And she married the Rebbe, I want to say when she was like 25, exact dates here, I don't know. She was about 25, I think. And they lived, well, for a short time they lived in Poland, and then they lived in Germany and in Paris. And the Rebbe officially went to school, went to the Sorbonne, and he went in Berlin. He forgot what school to go to. But it said, some people said that she's the one that did a lot of the homework for him. Because he listened to the class, but at the same time he was like learning Talmud. And the real reason they were in these places were not just that he should get a degree, but the real reason they were there was doing like life-saving missions for her father, like helping Jews. And it was time of war, the time of World War II, and they were doing a lot of helping people. A few things I wanted to point out about her. So she was very, very private. So when the Rebbe became Rebbe, there were some people who felt that her older sister's husband should have been Rebbe. So because of that, she never wanted her sister to feel slighted. So she never like went out to public events. Like she could have been honored. She could have gone to Shul every week and gone to different places, and people say, "Oh, here's a Rebbetzin coming," or she could have been like guest speaker or guest at honored guest at events. But she didn't go out because she didn't want her sister to feel any like that she's not getting the honor.
Who did his sister marry by any chance?
His name was
That's okay. Did they have
no, I know his name is Garari. I'm just trying to think his first name.
Did they have any children?
No, they they did have a child. They did have a child, yes.
Was he a rabbi too?
No,
He's Persian, Garari?
no.
Really? Sounds so Persian.
No, not Persian at all. It's a big rabbi.
He's not a rabbi.
It's a Hasidic Rebbe
Oh, is it? Okay.
name.
So
Yeah.
he was okay. So the oldest daughter, his sister rather.
Now you're gonna have me crazy, Shmaryahu Garari.
sorry.
Okay, no, it's Rashad. He was known as the Rashad, meaning Rabbi Shmaryahu Garari.
Wait, he was Rasha?
Rashad.
Oh, okay.
And the youngest sister, did she get married too?
But she was killed in the Holocaust.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, let me just stop sharing.
Did she have any? The youngest one didn't have any children.
No, she was.
So there's only actually, I hate to say, technically only one.
Yes.
Blood from because not Zalman. I mean from what's his name?
Shmaria. Yeah.
I mean from the previous.
From the previous Yosef Yitzchak.
Yosef Yitzchak.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So who is this child?
Well, do you know the story that we've spoken about the person stealing the books from the Rebbe like
Oh,
last
in real
month.
life.
So that was his son.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then he didn't have any children. He only had adopted a child.
Okay, so the lineage stopped.
Yeah.
Oh, it's done. Wow.
Yeah.
What did you say? What?
The lineage has stopped.
So anyway, a few things I want to point out about her. So again, so she was very she was a very, very dignified woman. She did a lot of things that people like didn't really know about. So she wrote in certain Chabad publications. She there's one story about her where she would go often to the New York Public Library to research. And she would always just come in. She would say she's just a Schneer. She would just come in like a regular person. She wasn't like Rebbitzin or this or that. Very non-discreet. One time I guess she met a woman there, and the woman was like complaining or crying that she didn't have any children. She wanted to have a child. And so the Rebbitzin said, well, maybe you should light Shabbos candles. And they said, oh, okay, never heard of that before, whatever, maybe I heard of it, but don't do it. So after a little while, she met this woman again. The woman said, I still don't have any children. And the Rebbitzin said, well, when do you light the candles? You have to make sure to light them at the right time. And then once this woman did that, she had a child. So there's many other stories where she gave blessings or she helped people with blessings. Also times where the Rebbe told other people, you could ask my wife for a blessing too. You don't have to ask me. So there is also, so when the story of the court case with the books from the Rebbe's library happened, they actually deposed her. They deposed her, and her testimony is what kind of like was the clinch of the court case, because they were trying to determine was the books, was the library, were they personal or were they public? And she said, everything that my father was a Rebbe, he belonged to the community, so everything he had belonged to the community too. And just to take from there, when the community wanted her husband to become the Rebbe, she knew exactly what it meant because she grew, her father was the Rebbe. She knew that means he would never be home, he would never have any personal time, he'd be totally given over, and she's the one that pushed him or convinced him to actually take over the leadership from her father after he passed away.
Was it like Rashi's wife? No, who was the wife that did that? Not there was one wife that also sent him to
Rakiva?
Rabbi Akiva.
That's I sent them away.
Right, but that's like 40,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
20 years, similar to that.
Yeah,
Rabbi Akiva,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing, just a nice, but the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin had a very special relationship. Obviously, they lived a very private life. Even though what's also very interesting is that the previous Rebbe, like if you read he writes a lot of stories, and it's very emotional. Like the previous Rebbe, his face and everything, he looked very serious. But when you read his writings and stuff, it's very like he does a lot of memoirs and very, very emotional and like very, and the Rebbe's things are much more like intellectual. And so in a way we feel like we know the previous Rebbe much more because we got to feel his emotions. And the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin were very much more private and didn't show any emotion. One of the things that we do know is that the Rebbetzin would wait for her husband whatever time he would come home, and we know that he would speak with people sometimes all night, sometimes till 2, 3 in the morning, and she would wait for him and have a cup of tea with him before he went to bed. So she would always make sure to be there and be up for him whatever time that was, and then obviously without getting upset or angry, which is the clincher.
Is that what?
Without getting upset or angry about it. Hey, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Where were you? No, she didn't do that. Not everybody can do that exactly.
Take a nap and wake up.
Yeah. And before she passed away, she actually asked for a drink of water so she could say the bracha shahakal. And once she said the shahakal, really shortly after that, she passed away. I just want to say, I never met the Rebbetzin, even though I met the Rebbe many times, because again, she was out of public eye. You didn't see her. Very few people actually went to her house to see her. Very, very few people. I wanted to show a video. Maybe I'll share it on the WhatsApp because I forgot to save it on my computer. I'll send it to you separately.
Thank you.
But when I was 18 in New York, on Lag BaOmer, I broke my ankle. No, not Lag BaOmer, sorry, on Purim, I broke my ankle. And so at that point, I went to the emergency room, blah, 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 and my parents said, just come home. I went home and I got care there, but then I had to go back to New York for school after
My home is
Passover. Chicago. And so like, I guess someone suggested go to this and this doctor in Manhattan to follow up. And I went to this and this doctor in Manhattan to follow up. I think his name was Dr. Rosen, maybe. And and I come in and I see this huge picture of the Rebbe on the wall. I'm like, whoa. So I'm looking at it and he sees it and he said, he's like, I treated the Rebbitzin. And that's why I have this picture on the wall. So that was like, oh, I was like, oh wow, I got to like go to the same doctor that the Rebbitzin went to.
He's the reason you broke your ankle.
No, I hope not.
No, well,
I mean, whatever.
Meet this guy.
Yeah, to meet this guy.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, so just want to kind of just mention her. And again, it's because she didn't have any children, but she had so many spiritual children and so many people who named their children Chayamushka after her, and many things that we do in her memory. So yeah, if everyone could do a mitzvah or something for the Rebbe's neshama tonight. And this weekend in New York, I'm not there, but there's a big annual convention with all the Chabad Rebbetzins, except for me. No, not just me. I know there's other people not there too. But
security,
yeah,
everything that's going
Yeah.
on.
Oh, for sure.
Did you
Yeah.
see what's
they have like major New York, they have major like police
oh, well,
outposts, the whole Crown Heights. Yeah,
there was something today, you saw that?
yeah. Well, that was crazy that they allowed
A protest.
a protest